For most people, an airport is a place to escape as quickly as possible. It's where vacations begin, business trips start, and long journeys are interrupted by security lines, crowded terminals, delayed flights, and endless waiting. Every year, billions of passengers pass through airports around the world, sharing the same experience. They check in, clear security, search for an empty seat near the gate, and wait for their boarding group to be called. It's a routine so familiar that few people ever question it. But hidden behind discreet glass doors and unmarked corridors exists an entirely different airport, one that almost nobody ever sees. Inside these spaces, there are no crowded waiting areas or noisy departure gates. Instead, passengers enjoy private dining rooms where meals are prepared by award-winning chefs. They relax in marble-clad lounges overlooking the runway, take showers after 14-hour flights, sleep in private suites, or sip champagne worth hundreds of dollars a bottle while someone else quietly takes care of their luggage. At some airports, they don't even enter the terminal. A chauffeur greets them at a private entrance. Immigration officers process their passports in exclusive facilities hidden away from the public. Luxury cars drive them directly across the tarmac to a waiting aircraft. It sounds like the world of private jets, but surprisingly, it isn't. These experiences exist inside commercial airports. They're reserved for first-class passengers, elite frequent flyers, royalty, celebrities, billionaires, and perhaps most importantly, the airline's most valuable customers. At first glance, these lounges appear to be nothing more than extravagant perks, expensive furniture, premium food, designer interiors, unlimited champagne, the kind of luxury that airlines use to impress wealthy travelers. But appearances can be deceiving, because these rooms aren't really about comfort. They're about business. Some of the world's largest airlines have invested hundreds of millions of dollars creating facilities that less than 1% of their passengers will ever experience. From a financial perspective, that sounds absurd. Why would any company spend enormous sums building spaces that almost none of its customers will ever enter? The answer reveals something fascinating about modern aviation. Airlines discovered that their most profitable product isn't an aircraft. It isn't first class. It isn't business class. It's loyalty. One executive flying internationally every week can generate more revenue than dozens of holidaymakers flying once a year. Lose that passenger to a competitor, and you don't just lose a ticket. You lose years of future business, perhaps even millions of dollars. Suddenly, the economics begin to make sense. The marble floors aren't really selling luxury. They're selling retention. The private dining rooms aren't serving meals. They're building relationships. The chauffeur waiting beside the aircraft isn't simply providing transportation. He's creating an experience that passengers will remember long after they've forgotten the flight itself. Luxury airport lounges aren't accidental. They're carefully engineered environments designed using psychology, hospitality, architecture, and customer behavior. Every cent, every piece of furniture, every interaction, every glass of champagne, every quiet corner overlooking the runway exists for a reason. Because in today's aviation industry, the battle for the world's wealthiest travelers isn't fought at 35,000 feet. It's fought long before passengers ever board the airplane. And behind those exclusive doors lies one of the most fascinating and profitable competitions in modern business. Chapter 1. The Birth of Airline Loyalty. Long before airport lounges became symbols of prestige, flying itself was considered one of the greatest luxuries money could buy. During the 1920s and 1930s, commercial aviation was reserved almost exclusively for society's elite. Aircraft were small, tickets were expensive, and routes were limited. Crossing an ocean by air was an extraordinary event, undertaken by politicians, diplomats, wealthy industrialists, and movie stars, rather than ordinary families. For airlines, every passenger represented significant value. There were no budget carriers competing on price, no online comparison websites, and no loyalty programs encouraging repeat business. Commercial aviation was still a young industry, and simply convincing people to trust an airplane was often more important than convincing them to choose one airline over another. That changed dramatically after the Second World War. Rapid advances in aircraft technology gave birth to the jet age. Airliners became faster, larger, safer, and capable of flying farther than ever before. International travel expanded rapidly throughout the 1950s and 1960s, connecting continents in ways that had previously seemed impossible. Flying slowly transformed from an extraordinary privilege into an increasingly common part of business and tourism. For airlines, this growth brought an unexpected problem. Success created competition. As more carriers entered the market, passengers suddenly had choices. Multiple airlines began operating similar aircraft on identical routes, often departing within minutes of each other. Safety standards improved across the industry. Flight times became almost identical, and onboard service gradually reached similar levels. For the first time, airlines faced an important question. If every airline can fly passengers from London to New York, why should anyone choose one airline over another? The answer wasn't found in the sky. It was found on the ground. Airlines began studying their customers more carefully and discovered something remarkable. Not every passenger generated the same value. A family flying to Europe once every summer certainly mattered, but their contribution to the airline's business was relatively limited. A corporate executive flying internationally every week was something entirely different. That single traveler might purchase dozens of premium tickets every year. They often booked flights at the last minute, paid higher fares for flexibility, and remained loyal to airlines that consistently delivered a reliable experience. Over the course of a decade, one executive could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with the same airline. Losing that customer to a competitor wasn't simply disappointing. It was incredibly expensive. Airlines realized they didn't just need to attract passengers, they needed to keep them. That realization gave birth to one of the most influential ideas in modern aviation: reward loyalty. At first, the rewards were relatively simple. Preferred customers received priority reservations, dedicated customer service, and invitations to private waiting rooms inside airports. These early lounges weren't luxurious by today's standards. Most offered comfortable seating, complimentary refreshments, newspapers, and a quiet place away from increasingly crowded terminals. Yet their true purpose had very little to do with comfort. They were designed to make passengers feel recognized. Because airlines had discovered something that remains true to this day. People don't stay loyal to companies simply because they offer a good product. They stay loyal because those companies make them feel valued. That simple insight would eventually transform the airport lounge from a modest waiting room into one of the most powerful business tools the aviation industry has ever created. And over the next few decades, airlines would begin competing in ways nobody could have imagined. Not through faster aircraft or cheaper tickets, but through experiences so extraordinary that passengers would choose an airline before they had even boarded the plane. Chapter 2. The Billion-Dollar Passenger. Most people assume airlines make their money by filling as many seats as possible. It's a reasonable assumption. After all, every flight has hundreds of passengers, and every empty seat represents lost revenue. But inside every major airline, there's another way of looking at the business. Not every passenger is equally valuable. In fact, the difference between two passengers sitting just a few rows apart can amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of their lifetime. Imagine two travelers. The first is a family of 4 flying to Thailand for their annual vacation. They spend weeks comparing prices online, eventually booking whichever airline offers the lowest fare. Once the holiday ends, they may not fly internationally again for another year. Now imagine the second traveler. She's the regional director of a multinational company. Every Monday morning she's boarding a flight to another country for client meetings. Every Thursday she's flying home. Some weeks she's crossing the Atlantic. Other weeks she's traveling across Asia or the Middle East. Her company pays for business class because she needs to work the moment she lands. Delays cost money. Comfort improves productivity. Flexibility is essential. Over the course of a single year, she might spend more on flights than the first family spends in a decade. Now multiply that across 20 years. That one customer may generate well over $1 million in revenue for the same airline. This is what the aviation industry calls customer lifetime value. It's one of the most important numbers in modern business, yet passengers rarely think about it. Airlines certainly do. Because once you understand lifetime value, many of the industry's biggest decisions suddenly make sense. Why does an airline assign dedicated account managers to major corporations? Why do elite passengers receive priority phone lines that answer within seconds? Why are frequent flyers upgraded when seats are available? Why are luxury lounges stocked with premium champagne, gourmet meals, private offices, and shower suites? None of it is free. it's an investment. Airlines aren't trying to recover the cost of a single ticket. They're protecting decades of future revenue. In many ways, airport lounges operate like the VIP rooms inside luxury hotels or high-end casinos. The purpose isn't simply to reward customers. It's to ensure they never seriously consider going somewhere else. Psychologists call this the endowment effect. Once people become accustomed to a certain level of comfort, they begin viewing it as normal. Losing that experience feels like a genuine loss, even if they manage perfectly well without it before. That's exactly what airlines want. Once a passenger becomes used to skipping security queues, relaxing in a peaceful lounge, taking a shower before a long-haul flight, and boarding directly from a private gate, returning to the ordinary terminal feels like a downgrade. The airline hasn't simply improved the journey. It has changed the passenger's expectations forever. Frequent flyer programs reinforce this even further. Every mile earned brings travelers closer to elite status. Every elite tier unlocks additional privileges: priority boarding, extra baggage, complimentary upgrades, exclusive customer service, and perhaps most importantly, access to the lounge. Over time, passengers stop chasing cheaper tickets. Instead, they chase status. Airlines understand this psychology remarkably well. They're no longer competing solely on ticket prices or flight schedules. They're competing for habits, because once an airline becomes part of a passenger's routine, switching to a competitor becomes surprisingly difficult. The lounge is simply the most visible symbol of that relationship. But behind the marble floors, designer furniture, and fine dining lies something much more valuable than luxury. It's one of the most sophisticated customer retention strategies ever created. And once every major airline realized just how effective it was, the competition changed forever. No longer was it enough to have a lounge. Now, every airline wanted to build the best lounge in the world. Chapter 3. The Luxury Arms Race. For decades, airport lounges were little more than comfortable waiting rooms. They offered complimentary coffee, quiet seating, newspapers, and a brief escape from the increasingly crowded terminal. For most premium travelers, that was enough. Then, during the late 1990s and early 2000s, something unexpected happened. The world's largest airlines stopped competing solely in the sky. Instead, they began competing on the ground. The reason was simple. Modern aircraft had become remarkably similar. Whether passengers flew on a Boeing or an Airbus, the experience wasn't dramatically different. Safety standards were exceptionally high across the industry. Flight times between major cities varied by only a few minutes, and most international airlines had developed excellent onboard service. The traditional advantages were disappearing. If airlines wanted to convince a high-value customer to choose them over a competitor, they needed to create something that couldn't easily be copied. That something became the airport experience. No airline understood this better than Emirates. Operating from Dubai, a city positioned almost perfectly between Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia, Emirates recognized that millions of international passengers would pass through its hub every year. Those travelers might spend 2, 3, or even 6 hours waiting for their connecting flight. Most airlines viewed that time as unavoidable. Emirates saw it as an opportunity. Rather than asking passengers to endure a layover, the airline decided to transform the layover into part of the luxury experience. It invested heavily in lounges that looked nothing like traditional airport facilities. Marble replaced carpet, fine dining replaced buffets, quiet relaxation areas replaced rows of waiting chairs. Guests could enjoy spa treatments, premium wines, shower suites, business centers, and direct boarding gates that allowed them to walk from the lounge straight onto the aircraft. The message was clear. Your journey doesn't begin when you take your seat. It begins the moment you arrive at the airport. Competitors couldn't ignore what was happening. Qatar Airways answered with the Safwa First Lounge in Doha, creating a space inspired less by luxury hotels and more by contemporary museums. Towering ceilings, reflecting pools, natural stone architecture, and carefully controlled lighting created an atmosphere of remarkable calm. Instead of overwhelming guests with extravagance, Qatar focused on something increasingly valuable in modern travel: silence, privacy, space. Singapore Airlines responded differently. Its famous private room inside Changi Airport wasn't designed to impress through size or spectacle. Instead, it emphasized exclusivity. Access was restricted to the airline's most premium passengers, creating an experience that felt intentionally rare. The dining rivaled some of Singapore's finest restaurants, while the service reflected the airline's reputation for precision and understated elegance. Then, Lufthansa changed the rules completely. Rather than building another luxury lounge inside Frankfurt Airport, it constructed an entirely separate first-class terminal. Passengers arrived at a private building, completed immigration and security in minutes, enjoyed gourmet dining, relaxed in elegant lounges, and were later driven across the tarmac in Mercedes-Benz or Porsche vehicles directly to their aircraft. For many travelers, those final moments before boarding became every bit as memorable as the flight itself. Suddenly, every major airline found itself in an unofficial competition. Who had the finest lounge? Who offered the best dining? Who provided the greatest privacy? Who could deliver the most seamless experience? This wasn't about winning awards. It was about winning customers. Because every extraordinary lounge created another story, another unforgettable experience, another reason for a passenger to remain loyal. The battle for premium travelers had quietly become an arms race, and every year the standard for luxury continued to rise. Chapter 4. Inside the world's most exclusive lounges. By the time the competition reached its peak, airport lounges were no longer simply competing on comfort. They were competing on identity. Each airline wanted its lounge to reflect its philosophy before a passenger had even stepped onto the aircraft. The lounge became a physical representation of the brand itself, a place where travelers could experience the airline's values rather than simply read about them in advertisements. Perhaps nowhere is this philosophy more evident than at Dubai International Airport. The Emirates First Class Lounge occupies an entire floor of Concourse A, making it one of the largest airport lounges ever built. Covering more than 15,000 square meters, it feels less like an airport facility and more like a luxury hotel hidden inside one of the busiest aviation hubs on Earth. Marble corridors lead to elegant dining rooms where meals are prepared fresh throughout the day. There are premium cigar lounges, wine selections curated from some of the world's finest vineyards, and direct boarding gates that allow guests to walk from the lounge straight onto their aircraft without ever returning to the crowded terminal. Hundreds of miles away in Doha, Qatar Airways took an entirely different approach. The Safwa First Lounge is often compared to an art museum rather than an airport lounge. Inspired by contemporary Islamic architecture, instead of dazzling passengers with visible extravagance, the lounge creates something much harder to achieve: a sense of complete calm. Guests can reserve private bedrooms, enjoy restaurant-quality dining served à la carte, freshen up in luxurious bathrooms, or simply sit in near silence while the airport continues operating around them. It is a reminder that true luxury isn't always about having more. Sometimes it's about experiencing less. Singapore Airlines followed a similar philosophy with the private room inside Changi Airport. Access is reserved exclusively for passengers traveling in suites or first class, making it one of the most exclusive lounges in commercial aviation. Rather than emphasizing size or spectacle, Singapore Airlines focuses on meticulous service. Staff often remember returning guests. Meals are prepared individually instead of served buffet style, and every detail reflects the airline's long-standing reputation for precision and hospitality. Then there is Lufthansa's famous first-class terminal in Frankfurt. Unlike every other airline, Lufthansa didn't simply build another premium lounge. It built an entirely separate terminal. Passengers arrive through a private entrance where dedicated staff handle check-in, immigration, and security in just a few minutes. Inside, they can enjoy gourmet dining, private offices, luxurious bathrooms, relaxation areas, and one of the largest whiskey collections found in any airport. When it's time to board, there are no crowded gates or boarding groups. Instead, a personal assistant escorts each passenger to a waiting Mercedes-Benz. It's a remarkably simple idea. Remove every unnecessary step. Other airlines developed their own signature experiences. Cathay Pacific designed lounges in Hong Kong that resemble elegant modern homes rather than commercial spaces. Virgin Atlantic transformed its Heathrow clubhouse into a vibrant social space featuring craft cocktails, wellness treatments, and stylish interiors that feel closer to an exclusive private members club than an airport lounge. Although every airline approached luxury differently, they all arrived at the same conclusion: Passengers rarely remember every detail of a flight, but they do remember how an experience made them feel. And if the journey begins with exceptional hospitality, remarkable architecture, and effortless service, the airline has already accomplished something incredibly valuable before the aircraft has even left the ground. The lounge is no longer simply a place to wait. It has become one of the most powerful branding tools in modern aviation. And that raises another fascinating question. If these lounges are already this extraordinary, what does the future of luxury air travel look like? Chapter 5. The Hidden Airport. Most people never see. For the overwhelming majority of travelers, every airport follows the same routine. Arrive early, check in, join the security line, walk through immigration, find the departure gate, wait. It's a process so familiar that most people assume everyone travels this way. But for a select group of passengers, the airport experience is almost unrecognizable. No long queues and no departure halls filled with thousands of passengers. A concierge greets them by name, collects their luggage, and escorts them into a private terminal where immigration officers, customs officials, and security personnel complete every necessary procedure in complete privacy. Within minutes, everything is finished. No waiting, no stress, no crowds. These facilities are often known as VIP terminals or private suites, and they represent the highest level of commercial aviation hospitality. One of the most famous examples is at Los Angeles International Airport, formerly known as the Private Suite. Originally built to accommodate celebrities, heads of state, and high-profile individuals seeking privacy, it has become one of the most exclusive airport experiences in the world. Guests arrive at a discreet building located away from the main terminals, where they are welcomed into luxurious private suites, complete with lounges, bedrooms, outdoor terraces, gourmet dining, and dedicated concierge teams. From there, airport staff handle every formality on the passenger's behalf. When boarding begins, a luxury SUV drives them directly across the airfield to the aircraft, allowing them to step onto the plane without ever entering the terminal alongside other travelers. For celebrities, this isn't simply about comfort. It's about anonymity, avoiding photographers, avoiding crowds, avoiding unwanted attention. The same philosophy exists across much of the Middle East. Royal terminals in countries such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have long provided private facilities for members of royal families, visiting presidents, and foreign dignitaries. These terminals operate almost like independent airports, complete with private immigration, customs, security screening, meeting rooms, and luxury lounges capable of accommodating entire diplomatic delegations. Companies like GTEX have taken the concept even further. Operating premium private aviation terminals around the world has built a reputation for delivering hotel-level hospitality inside airports. Clients are welcomed by personal concierge teams. Luxury vehicles wait outside the aircraft. Luggage is handled without the passenger lifting a finger, and every detail is carefully coordinated to ensure the journey feels completely seamless. The objective isn't extravagance, it's invisibility. The greatest luxury isn't necessarily owning a private jet. It's moving through one of the world's busiest environments without ever feeling its chaos. That philosophy is beginning to influence commercial airlines as well. Many first-class passengers now enjoy private check-in areas, dedicated immigration lanes, chauffeur-driven boarding, personal escorts, and priority baggage delivery that dramatically reduce the stress traditionally associated with airports. While these experiences may not be as exclusive as private terminals, they follow exactly the same principle. Remove every possible inconvenience. Because modern luxury is no longer measured by how much is added to the journey, it's measured by how much is removed. The fewer queues, the fewer interruptions, the fewer decisions, the less time wasted, the more luxurious the experience becomes. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson the aviation industry has learned over the past 2 decades. The world's wealthiest travelers aren't paying thousands of dollars simply for larger seats or finer meals. They're paying for something much harder to create. A journey so effortless that the airport itself almost disappears. That idea is now shaping the future of luxury travel, and it may ultimately change the way every one of us flies. Chapter 6. The future of luxury is invisible. For decades, luxury meant having more, a larger seat, a finer meal, more champagne, more space, more attention. But the world's most exclusive airport lounges reveal something fascinating about how luxury is changing. Today, the greatest luxury isn't having more. It's dealing with less waiting, less noise, less uncertainty, less stress. This shift is quietly transforming not only airports, but the entire travel industry. For years, airlines competed by adding visible luxury. Marble floors replaced carpets, designer furniture replaced standard seating. Celebrity chefs created exclusive menus, while premium champagne and rare whiskeys became standard offerings inside first-class lounges. Those features still matter, but they're no longer enough. Today's affluent travelers have something far more valuable than money. They have very little time. For a global CEO, entrepreneur, athlete, or investor, an hour spent standing in a security queue isn't merely inconvenient, it's expensive. A delayed meeting can cost millions. A missed connection can disrupt an entire international schedule. For these passengers, luxury is no longer measured by opulence. It's measured by efficiency. That's why airports around the world are investing heavily in technology designed to remove friction from the journey altogether. Biometric identification is gradually replacing passports and boarding passes. Instead of repeatedly showing travel documents throughout the airport, passengers can now verify their identity simply by walking through automated checkpoints using facial recognition. At airports such as Singapore Changi, Dubai International, and Hamad International in Doha, this technology is already reducing waiting times while creating a far more seamless experience. Artificial intelligence is becoming another invisible concierge. Rather than simply answering customer questions, AI is beginning to predict passenger needs before they arise. Airlines are experimenting with systems capable of recommending lounges based on crowd levels, preparing personalized meal selections using previous travel history, automatically rebooking disrupted flights, and even suggesting the quickest route through the airport in real time. The goal isn't to impress passengers with technology, it's to make the technology disappear. Another growing priority is wellness. Long-haul travel places enormous strain on the human body. Jet lag, poor sleep, and constant time zone changes have become unavoidable realities for frequent flyers. Recognizing this, airlines are redesigning premium lounges around health rather than extravagance. Sleep suites allow passengers to rest before overnight flights. Spa treatments help reduce fatigue. Nutrition-focused menus replace heavy buffet meals. Meditation rooms, quiet zones, and circadian lighting systems are being introduced to help travelers adjust more naturally to changing time zones. The airport lounge is gradually becoming less like a luxury restaurant and more like a wellness retreat. Even architecture is evolving. Modern premium lounges increasingly favor natural light, open spaces, living plants, and calming materials over excessive decoration. Designers have discovered that travelers don't necessarily feel more relaxed because a space looks expensive. They feel relaxed because the environment reduces stress. This philosophy extends far beyond aviation. Luxury hotels now emphasize privacy over extravagance. High-end automobiles prioritize effortless technology rather than flashy features. Even luxury homes increasingly focus on simplicity, wellness, and intelligent design instead of sheer size. Airport lounges are following exactly the same trend. Perhaps that's why they continue to fascinate people around the world. They aren't simply previews of the future of flying. They're previews of the future of luxury itself. A future where the greatest privilege isn't owning more possessions. It's experiencing fewer problems. And as airports continue becoming busier every year, that philosophy may prove more valuable than any marble floor, Michelin-starred restaurant, or bottle of vintage champagne ever could. Chapter 7. More than a lounge. If airport lounges tell us anything, it's that the airline industry has quietly changed the way it thinks about luxury. For most of aviation history, airlines competed by building faster aircraft, opening new routes, and offering better onboard service. Today, those advantages have become increasingly difficult to maintain. Modern aircraft are remarkably similar, safety standards are exceptionally high, and flight times between major destinations differ by only a matter of minutes. So airlines began competing somewhere else. They started competing for emotions. The world's most successful airlines understand that passengers rarely remember every detail of a flight. They might not remember the exact model of aircraft they flew, or the entertainment they watched for 12 hours. But they do remember how they were treated. They remember the employee who greeted them by name, They remember the peaceful lounge after a stressful week of meetings. Those memories create something that advertising can never buy: trust. That trust becomes loyalty, and loyalty becomes one of the most valuable assets any airline can possess. This explains why airlines continue investing billions of dollars into experiences that appear, at first glance, to benefit only a tiny percentage of travelers. It's measured by how many passengers come back, again, and again, and again. Because once someone experiences a truly seamless journey, it's remarkably difficult to accept anything less. That idea extends far beyond aviation. Luxury brands across every industry have reached the same conclusion. The world's finest hotels don't simply sell rooms, they sell peace. Airport lounges operate according to exactly the same principle. They're not selling expensive food or designer furniture. They're selling certainty. The certainty that every detail has already been taken care of, that someone is waiting to help before you even ask, that your journey will be effortless from beginning to end. Perhaps that's why airport lounges continue to capture our imagination, even among people who may never visit one. They represent something much larger than premium travel. They represent an idea. The idea that the highest level of luxury isn't about showing the world how much you have. It's about creating a world where nothing interrupts your time. Because in an age where almost everything competes for our attention, our patience, and our energy, the rarest luxury isn't found inside a champagne bottle or behind a marble reception desk. It's found in the simple feeling that, for just a little while, everything works exactly as it should. Every day, millions of passengers move through airports believing they all share the same journey. In reality, they don't. Behind quiet doors and private entrances exists another world, one built not simply on luxury, but on strategy. What began nearly a century ago as a modest waiting room for an airline's most valued customers has evolved into one of the most sophisticated business tools in modern aviation. Today's luxury lounges are no longer just places to relax before a flight. They are carefully engineered experiences that combine hospitality, psychology, architecture, technology, and branding into a single objective, making passengers choose the same airline again and again. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson these hidden spaces have to offer. Luxury has changed. It is no longer defined by gold finishes, crystal chandeliers, or unlimited champagne. True luxury is becoming invisible. It's the absence of cues, the absence of noise, the absence of uncertainty. It's buying back time in a world where time has become the most valuable currency of all. So the next time you walk through an airport and notice a discreet doorway marked First Class Lounge, remember that it isn't simply hiding a more comfortable chair or a better meal. It's hiding one of the most fascinating business strategies ever created, one that has quietly transformed the way the world's wealthiest travelers experience flight, and perhaps the way all of us will travel in the future. Because the greatest luxury in modern aviation isn't flying at 35,000 feet. It's making everything that happens before takeoff feel effortless.